Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. The headlines. Oyo State Governor says explosive devices responsible for Bodija blast as rescue operations continue. Comoros' re-elected president expressed pleasure over victory in poll. Mauritius assess damage caused by Storm Bilal. Details and more shortly. We begin the news in Nigeria's southwest, where the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has disclosed that preliminary investigations by security agencies revealed that the explosion that rocked the Bodija area of Ibadan, the state capital, on Tuesday, was caused by explosive devices stored by illegal miners. The blast, which occurred on Tuesday, resulted in the tragic loss of at least 10 lives, with 15 others hospitalized. The impact of the explosion extended to several key locations, including the Governor's office, Secretariat, Oyo State House of Assembly, and the residence of the former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Chief Bola Ige. Additionally, damage was reported in various neighbourhoods such as Ologuneru, Apete, New Garage, Bashorun, Akobo, Sango. Governor Seyi, who visited the scene of the incident on Tuesday night, assured the public that further investigations are underway. He emphasized that anyone found responsible for the tragedy will face illegal or legal consequences. Now, rescue operations are already in progress as the affected areas, as authorities work diligently to provide assistance and support to those affected.
The thing is devastation here, and from what we've gathered so far, the likelihood is that you have illegal miners buying with explosives around this place. We've always said to people that when you see something, say something, and then the authorities should be able to do something. This is quite unfortunate. At this stage is just to rescue anyone that is still under the rubble here, and also the people that have been taken to the hospital to give them care, and also some of the people who have their houses destroyed, provide temporary accommodation for them at hotels within the city. And then in the morning, we definitely will continue the investigation. The affected families, I'll say the government is here. We will support them in the recovery effort. But most importantly, we will react appropriately to this incident. It's just it's devastating. It's something that it's difficult to wrap one's head around this.
Now let's head to eastern Nigeria, where Monday's inauguration of Hope Uzodinma as the governor of Imo State for his second term had many national dignitaries in attendance, including President Bola Tinubu. The Nigerian leader, in his speech at the occasion, spoke about the state of the nation and government's plan to fix things. Chinwe Ugele sought the opinion of some citizens of the state on the speeches of both the president and the governor. Her report.
Gathered and travelled from near and wide was to witness the swearing-in ceremony of Governor Hope Uzodinma for his second term in office.
That as the governor of Imo State, I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability.
President Bola Tinubu at the swearing-in ceremony which took place at the Dananyam Stadium in Owerri had advised Governor Hope Uzodinma to ensure he worked towards the recovery and development of the state's economy. The president also commended the government and people of the state for the security that is now in existence.
I'm glad we are showing a very united country and moving forward.
Based on the security report given to him by security agencies, he doesn't live in Imo State. For as far as I'm concerned, people from certain part of Imo State still find it difficult. They are still afraid of traveling to their village.
He appealed for understanding of the masses on the fuel subsidy removal and congratulated the people for choosing Uzodinma as their governor.
Don't worry about what you're hearing about the Japa syndrome. We will train more people. And then we can supply themselves.
People are leaving this country. What is behind this Japa syndrome? Those who are in government employ are not paid very well. And it has also affected so many other people that run private organizations. They don't pay their workers very well. So this is the cause of the Japa syndrome, and it should be addressed.
For choosing Uzodinma as their governor. In his address earlier, after taking the oath of office, Governor Hope Uzodinma, before notable citizens from different parts of the country, declared that his second-term journey will be even more impactful on the Imo citizens following a development plan already in place for the state.
Through the provision of extensive road infrastructure, we've been able to lay a solid foundation for the accelerated economic growth and development of our state.
But in the circumstance belonging to insecurity in Imo State, that happens to be one of the greatest challenge. Let him stop making issues or making announcement to further, bring in more hands to him.
The governor also used the occasion to call on aggrieved Imo people to bury their differences and work collectively with him to develop the state. In Omahefo News Central, Chinwe Ugile.
To security matters now, the Minister of Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory has accused area council chairmen of abdicating their responsibilities, thus de-escalating insecurity challenges being witnessed in the capital. The minister, during a security meeting with heads of security agencies and council chairpersons over the rise in kidnapping in the capital, says efforts will be put in place to end the scourge of kidnapping. Amadin Uyi reports.
With kidnappings in the FCT notably on the rise, the case of Nabia Al-Qadriya, a 400-level student of the Ahmadu Bello University, who was recently killed by kidnappers after her abduction, and her family's inability to pay a 60 million naira ransom, many Nigerians have expressed anger over the inability of security operatives to do anything to stop the scourge. The military recently attempted to allay the fears of residents, saying operations have commenced in the area and assuring that the kidnappers will be brought to book.
I'll say that operations are ongoing to root out activities of these extremists posing a threat to the FCT following recent reports. As I speak to you, operations are ongoing at those locations. In the last 1 week, we have arrested several of them, and they are providing intelligence to support our operations.
This, however, has not had much results, as it has not relieved the tension being experienced by residents. The Minister of Nigeria's Federal Capital recently summoned heads of security agencies and area council chairmen of the 6 area councils within Abuja over the insecurity situation being experienced.
All of us are aware of the security situation in the Federal Capital Territory, particularly Buhari and some other areas that were witnessed security challenges.
He assured residents that there is no need to panic, saying efforts will be put in place to nip kidnapping in the bud.
We owe a duty to make sure that this place is safe. We'll do all we can. And we're sure Nigerians who reside here that there's no need for panic. We're taking every step to make sure there's no challenges then that we must have to resolve.
The minister, however, took a swipe at area council chairmen, accusing them of abdicating from their duties and responsibilities. He says many of them remain absentee chairmen who are never found at their places of assignment.
We have gotten reports that council chairmen travel anytime, and then if anything happens, of course, they will not call anybody's name. They will call the FCT minister.
With promises made to address the FCT's insecurity challenges, many residents will be hoping that the federal capital becomes safer. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
In north-central Nigeria, the Plateau State Governor has restated his administration's commitment in ensuring the security of both lives and property in the state. This is arising from the magnitude of losses recorded in the Christmas Eve attacks, which left scores of people dead and many injured. Chizoba Anyongwe tells us more.
It is no longer news how badly and sadly locals in Bokos, Mangu and Barkinladi local government areas of Plateau State spent their 2023 Christmas. This has left many people thinking of what the causes were, those behind the acts, and what the government can do to avoid a repeat occurrence. Governor Caleb Mutfwang says among measures to bring back peace in the state, the welfare of security agencies will be prioritized as a way of appreciating their efforts to do more.
I want to salute the GOC. Since he came on board, I have seen the GOC demonstrate great professionalism. And I have seen how he has been able to earn the trust of his officers and men. No wonder, I think the other day, Mangu had some of them calling him game-changing. As governor, by the grace of God, I will do my best among the committee of governors to advocate for better welfare for our security agencies.
At the recent event to host the governor, the GOC 3 Armored Division and Commander Operation Safe Haven said the Nigerian Army will stop at nothing in fulfilling their mandates.
We acknowledge that challenges exist. However, we shall not despair nor become despondent. We are aware of the sophistication and complexities that lie with current dynamic security challenges. Yet, I am confident that by maintaining our unity, cooperation, dedication, and the relentless pursuit for peace, we will overcome any obstacle that comes our way.
Meanwhile, victims of the attacks are still on the road to recovery, while the stabilized ones among them have been discharged from different health facilities. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyonwe.
Now, Nigeria is grappling with a growing mental health crisis. Reports reveal a surge in mental health challenges across the nation, highlighting the urgent need for attention and action. Factors such as economic pressures, societal expectations, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic contribute to the escalating problem. With limited mental health resources available, citizens face significant barriers to accessing adequate support and treatment. Health experts and advocacy groups are calling on the government to prioritize mental health initiatives, increase awareness, and allocate more resources to addressing the pressure issue or the present issue. Now, as the nation confronts this critical challenge, there is a collective plea for swift and comprehensive measures to safeguard the mental well-being of Nigerians. Now, joining me to delve into the depth of this crisis is a mental and emotional health consultant, also a clinical psychologist, Ologuneru Adamilare. Good morning, Dr. Ologuneru. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
All right, now we've actually heard some of the reasons why, the mental health issues in Nigeria is actually growing, stemming from economic challenges, and so much more. But if you can tell us, what are some lesser known factors and the most common underlying causes that can contribute to mental health struggles issues that you have encountered, in the course of your career and in your experience, and how can they be identified?
All right. Thank you very much once again. I want to say good morning to everyone at home there. So one of the things we need to know when it comes to mental and emotional health is that depression and anxiety are common code of mental illness. So when I say depression and anxiety, as in they are so rampant, they are so common that some of the times it might even be difficult or very easy to actually confuse, because you see someone that is sad saying that they are depressed. So there are certain criteria for diagnosing when it comes to anxiety or depression. Let me quickly give us a brief. When it comes to clinical depression, which is different from the regular sadness or the low mood that people refer to as being depressed, we'll see three things that are very, very worthy of note. The first one is persistence. Persistence, as in when it comes to mental illnesses or things like mood issues like depression, we see a case for persistence, as in the better part of each day for at least 2 weeks when it comes to depression. Better past most part of each day for at least 2 weeks. That is number one. And that is one of the things we notice that differentiates someone that has just a low mood from someone that has depression. Another thing that we see in this set of persons is pervasiveness, as in it's not just low mood, but low mood plus or depression plus something. Either one, irritability, that is the person is easily upset. We see change in the usual self of the individual. We see things like appetite change. Maybe the person begins to consume so much, stress eating, or the person is not eating enough, just loses appetite. We see cases for issue of pleasure, losing pleasure in. We see issues with sleep, either insomnia, that is very little or poor sleep, or hypersomnia, just sleeping and sleeping and sleeping almost always for this duration. We see things like psychomotor agitation, when the person becomes very restless, or psychomotor retardation, when the person just does not feel like moving or going anywhere.
But doctor, permit me to just, chip in here. But how does it even get to depression? Because how do you know you are depressed? Because there's so many people who, once they feel sad, they, term it as, depression. How do you know you're depressed? There seems to be a thin line between sadness and depression.
All right. There are certain things we need to know. Everything about mental illnesses actually hinges on two things. Number one is nature. If there is a positive mental illness history in the family, say for instance, an individual has a family where something like mood disorders, like this anxiety or depression, runs in the family, that is a factor. That is a very, very key, a biological or a genetic factor. Then we say something like when individuals are going through certain things like physical kind of health problems. So that is also a very major one. For these people, they are already vulnerable. They are already at risk. Then when we talk about nurture, we say things like loss. We talk about things like abuse, neglect, marital discord or conflict. We say issues with family dynamics, family or home environment. We talk about narcissistic injury. There are certain things when we were growing up that caregivers has actually done to us that has shaped us in certain ways. Take, for instance, like emotions regulation. And there are some things that were not also taught us growing up. Like I said, emotions regulation. When an individual is now not able to completely regulate their emotions very well, that person is at risk. Take, for instance, some people have very high sensitivity, secondary to low threshold. They have not been taught how to manage. So when we talk about like emotions regulation, you see all around town today, we talk about emotional intelligence. When an individual is not able to identify his own emotions, regulate emotions, then you want to take him to a point where he becomes intelligent with emotions. A lot of people, even adults, cannot name the emotion they are feeling. When somebody is angry, he says, I'm angry. But anger is a secondary emotion, which means that there's another one underlining. So when there's high sensitivity in the areas of emotions regulation, there will be high reactivity and there will be slow return
All right,
to baseline.
Dr.
So
Koka,
these are
yes,
risk factors.
one of the questions I was actually going to ask if genetics actually plays a role in mental health, and thank you so much for clarifying that for us. But what about certain life stages or even transitions? You know, do they trigger mental health challenges more frequently? And if they do, how can they be managed proactively?
Beautiful. Now talk about management proactively. Yes, everybody transit at one level or at one time. Take, for instance, a child from a child to becoming an adolescent or a teenager. There are certain things because of the growth hormones that begins to happen in them from their mind to their body. So yes, this is a transition from transitioning from a student now to a working class. It's a transitioning from single to married, from a particular job description to another one or job role to another one, from significant loss, from even significant blessings. There are a lot of things. Yes, transitioning from one stage or another takes a major thing. Then number one is that we must know that, yes, I am transitioning. If I am transitioning, what used to work before, we need to assess it. Will this thing still work for me? So knowledge of self is key, is the primary fundamental thing. When I transited, when I was growing up, what were the challenges that I had? Which ones were biological, which ones were dealing with social or psychosocial issues. So now that I am transitioning, are there other persons that are around me, like social support or a form of buffer that can help me in my transitioning process so that the role becomes very easy for me to transition into? That is one. I understand myself and I have social support. So that is two. Then another thing we need to understand very well is the places of individual things around us. What are the things that would usually trigger me? What are those things that I know very well based on the knowledge of myself, or that based on the feedback that I've gotten from my environment that actually triggers me, or that people have said that, okay, we observe that based on the person you are, this triggers you, this helps you, this does not help you. So that with the knowledge of ourselves, we are able to move into certain things that help our role transitioning, that helps our position transitioning, socioeconomic transitioning, financial, marital, spiritual, what kind, academic transitioning, so that it can be smooth. Knowledge of self, availability of emotional support from individual persons from around. Don't forget, family members are good, but our network is also very key. Family members may be able to supply certain things, but your network, the people you relate with, you associate with, if
all right,
family members are not
Dr. Koka,
available,
you talked about family members. Now, let's not forget the fact that, you know, we're in Africa, and as Africans, you know, they would say they don't believe in anything that has to do with mental health. As an African, you're a black man, you should be strong enough to handle whatever comes your way and all that. But, you know, how can mental health education and its awareness be improved to better equip individuals in preventing and also addressing this issue?
Beautiful, beautiful. Number one, like I said, family member. Every charity, mental health is like a case of charity that begins at home. Now it becomes very imperative for parents to understand themselves, become aware of their own self, and that self-awareness that they have, they begin to teach it to children at very tender age. A lot of people don't know that emotions regulation is a skill that we are not born with, that we have to learn. So if the parent or caregiver don't have it, how would they be able to teach it? So yes, mental health begins from home, from the unit, the family. Then we now talk about curriculum development in schools to teach emotional health, to teach understanding emotion, to teach emotions regulation, to teach emotion management, to teach emotion planning, and different types of approaches like that from the very little or young tertiary type of, primary or nursery type of education to the tertiary level. So if we are able to do this, we've been saying times and again that communities, we do community mobilization. What does that mean? Wherever we go, whatever type of community or group that we belong to, as a matter of fact, nowadays we talk about your tribe, finding your tribe. Everybody should belong to a tribe, a group of people that understand them. And one of the primary conversations that should take place at every point in time is, how are you? Going beyond just greeting to how are you really doing? Are you aware? Are you in touch with yourself? Are you aware of yourself? What can we do to help you become aware, self-aware, and self-develop, especially when it comes into areas of emotional health?
Dr. Olubenga Adamilare Koka, for joining me at this time to discuss a very touchy topic and issue of mental health, especially in Nigeria. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for your time. The Pediatric Association of Nigeria has implored all states in the country to urgently adopt the Child's Rights Act of 2003. The association said so far only 31 of Nigeria's 36 states have implemented this critical legislation to safeguard children's welfare. The association disclosed this at the commencement of its 55th annual conference in Lagos, tagged Apete, and themed Beyond Strategies and Goals, Reaching Every Child in Nigeria with Optimal Care. Speaking at a press conference in Lagos, the association's president, Dr. Olufemi Ogunrinde, raised serious concerns over the nation's medical brain drain crisis, which is creating staff shortages and putting immense strain on pediatric staff and facilities. The association also identified the vaccination rates in the country as a major concern. It said 6.2 million children have missed almost all routine immunizations, fueling a threat of repeated disease outbreaks. Catch-up vaccination drives, community awareness campaigns, countering misinformation, and coordinated efforts involving religious leaders, community mobilizers was prescribed as a way forward.
Our children, I'm sure you know, are our most important national assets, the key to the future of our country. Presently, the number for under 5 mortality is a staggering 102 per 1,000 live births. That's about 1 in 10 children die before their 5th birthday. And the number for newborn is about 34 newborn deaths per 1,000 live births. We therefore implore all states of the Federation to immediately domesticate the Child's Rights Act. We have an unacceptable 6.2 million children in Nigeria who have never received vaccines or missed almost all their vaccines. We need to reach every child in this country, irrespective of their location, with vaccinations and other crucial healthcare interventions.
The number of children dying in the world is highest in Nigeria. Every 37 seconds, 1 child is dying in this country. And the reasons are obvious. Our vaccination rate is very low. But going back to where I started from in 2010, today we are in 2024. And fortunately, with the support of government and Gavi, now that body serves to ensure that the whole world gets vaccination.
Well, as you know, the theme for the conference is reaching every child, right, with optimal care. And that means we need to continue to advocate for proper care for the children. And it's not going to end just at the level of the conference. If you realize before, maybe in the last 1 month, we've been having press releases and press interviews talking about what we need to do to ensure that our children survive, not just survive. There's a difference between survival and then living.
The Ikeja branch of the Nigerian Bar Association has held the 20th Gani Fawemi annual lecture in honor of the iconic lawyer. Now, the lecture, which is celebrated every 15th of January, which marks the day Gani was called to bar, was a gathering of lawyers, vocal activists, civil society groups, and any other who, like the late Gani, are passionate about nation building and fighting corruption. Bernard Apete tells us more.
I want to say that the Inspector General of Police should be compelled.
Called to bar on the 15th January 1965, Chief Abdul Ganiu Oyeshola Fawemi, GCON, SAN, was a Nigerian author, publisher, philanthropist, social critic, human and civil rights lawyer, and politician. He spent the greater part of his life fighting for justice and addressing corruption, so it was no surprise to see others like him grace this occasion.
I am not a fan of secession. I'm a Pan-Africanist who believes that we should dissolve our borders and have Africa as one country, one nation. That's my own thinking.
Be very careful in demanding for state police. Please, please. We have a history of this in this country. You want to give state police to Wike? No, let's listen now. The fellow in Kogi, Bello. Yaya Bello. Please.
Rights to self-determination and agitation for secession in Nigeria was the theme for this year's lecture. However, most of the speakers used the platform to address other current pressing issues like corruption, insecurity, and the general state of the nation.
The people in my village don't want to secede to anywhere. They sing national anthem till tomorrow. They don't want to go. What they want is better life for themselves.
A woman called Sadia, I believe, was sentenced to be buried up to the neck and stoned to death. The man goes free in the case of adultery, but the woman, however, is buried up to the neck and stoned to death. If that had taken place, I would have jabbed a long time ago.
There were those who also used this opportunity to challenge the lawyers, telling them to bring back the glory days when the profession was held in high esteem, while on the side, members of civil society groups chanted songs of solidarity.
When I was growing up, if you see a lawyer, there's a panic. There's a sense of panic, a lawyer. We had just maybe 2 or 3 then. In Zaria, when you hear somebody is a judge, the disappearance of this trade has something to do with our not taking responsibility for our future.
The sum total of what we have had today is not that there is any approval for secession from Nigeria, but that secession must be recognized as a right, and the agitation for it must be to keep our leaders on their toes.
At the end of the day, it could be unanimously agreed that the lecture was one that the icon himself would have been proud of, while hoping the conversation here could take the country a step further towards achieving the desired change. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Apete.
Coming up after the break, Comoros' re-elected president happy with election results. We'll bring you more on this when we return. Welcome back. Now, the incumbent president of Comoros, Azali Assoumani, says he's pleasantly surprised by his victory in Sunday's presidential election, which is being contested by his rivals who allege ballot rigging. The 65-year-old's victory over 5 opposition challengers was expected, but does not appear to have generated much enthusiasm. Only 16.3% of the country's 340,000-strong electorate turned out.
Écoutez, c'est les Comoriens qui ont fait le choix. Donc effectivement, bon, dans nos pronostics, on attendait, mais ce choix-là, effectivement, nous a agréablement surpris. Mais comme je l'ai dit, c'est encore un devoir, parce que c'est une confiance et je n'ai pas le droit de le décevoir. Maintenant, le plus dur reste à faire. C'est montrer aux gens qui me font confiance qu'ils avaient raison de me faire confiance. Et j'espère qu'on va continuer. On a tout commencé, que ce soit l'éducation, la santé, les routes, l'énergie et l'entrepreneuriat. Tout est en route. Maintenant, c'est de consolider, mais il n'y a rien à commencer en premier. Tout à consolider.
Malaysians Mohammed Nazir bin Lep and Mohammed Farid bin Amin have pleaded guilty to conspiring in the 2002 Bali bombings that killed more than 200 people. The 2 men appeared in front of a military court at the U.S. naval base in Guantanamo Bay on Tuesday. Bin Lep, 47, and bin Amin, 48, pleaded guilty to 5 of the 9 charges against them, marking the first time they had entered a plea since they were brought to Guantanamo some 17 years ago. The Malaysians will be sentenced next week, after which they're expected to return home. President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday has pledged more support to Ukraine as France will deliver to a new batch of 40 Scalp long-range cruise missiles, as well as hundreds of bombs as Kyiv fights the Russian invasion. Macron at the news conference said that Europe's priority must not let Russia win, announcing he would make a new visit to the Ukrainian capital in February. Macron said that France was working on a new bilateral security agreement with Ukraine along the lines of a pact agreed between Kyiv and London that would be announced during his February visit. The Scalp is capable of striking targets far into the country's Russian-occupied east, well behind front lines that have remained relatively fixed for months. Analysts have said the West must keep up and even increase military support to Ukraine if it is to prevent Russia gaining the upper hand in the almost 2-year conflict.
Plus personne ne dit que le Rassemblement national, comme toutes les extrêmes droites en Europe, c'est surtout et avant tout le pays de l'appauvrissement collectif. C'est le parti de l'appauvrissement collectif. C'est le parti du mensonge, et ça le continue de l'être. C'est le parti qui a le programme, qui l'a complètement piqué à l'extrême gauche. C'est le parti qui continue à vous expliquer que la retraite à 60 ans est possible, sans vous expliquer comment la financer. Le parti qui vous explique qu'il faut augmenter le SMIC, sans vous expliquer comment ça ne désindustrialisera pas le pays. On a réorganisé déjà, ça c'est une réponse à ces émeutes, le temps scolaire. Ils iront tous jusqu'en juillet. Il n'y aura plus de temps scolaire qui est perdu en mai et en juin. Et ça, c'est essentiel de le tenir. Les écrans, la réponse arrive, et donc c'est un ensemble. C'est un problème beaucoup plus compliqué. Dans ce contexte-là, oui, le service national universel fait partie.
Now we move to business, where Perpetua Fasonmi Peter has the day's news.
In business, in a dramatic twist of industry dominance, Egypt has risen to become Africa's leading cement producer, boasting an impressive annual production capacity of around 92 million tons. This crucial announcement was made by Ahmed Samir, Minister of Industry and Trade, during the 25th Arab International Cement and Building Materials Conference. This conference, a significant gathering for industry professionals, it is. Minister Samir emphasized the cement industry's pivotal role in Egypt's rapidly expanding economy. He emphasized its invaluable contribution to meeting the critical needs of infrastructure and urban development projects across the nation. Egypt's cement industry now finds itself among the top 10 global cement producers, a testament to the nation's industrial progress and economic resilience. However, this dominance has not been independently verified. And in East Africa now, Kenya is considering a debt swap arrangement to improve its financial situation ahead of an important repayment deadline, according to confidential sources familiar with the matter. The proposed swap aims to allocate funds towards essential social services while addressing the nation's existing debt of $2 billion that is due in June. These sources revealed that Kenya is collaborating with banks and a select group of potential investors to examine the potential structure of this swap. However, it's worth noting that these discussions are still in the early stages and the details have not been publicly disclosed. Kenya is facing challenges in mobilizing resources to fund its budget with a significant deficit and a high debt burden. The servicing of Kenya's sovereign external debt is expected to rise sharply, including the repayment of a $2 billion Eurobond in June 2024. The country is seeking solutions to manage its debt burden while sustaining economic growth. Gabon has emerged as the fastest-growing shipping registry. According to Clarkson's research, a significant reflagging initiative by Sovcomflot, the top shipping operator in Russia, has propelled Gabon's shipping register to an outstanding growth rate of 130.6%. This growth is attributed to the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine nearly 2 years ago, underscores the evolving landscape of global shipping and the rise of the so-called dark fleet. The term dark fleet refers to vessels that operate under the radar, often skirting sanctions or other legal restrictions. The Gabonese flag, characterized by its green, yellow, and blue horizontal bands, has become a beacon for Sovcomflot tankers that once sailed under the Liberian flag. As of January 11, 46 tankers have been reflagged to Gabon, with more expected to follow suit. Over half of African nations will adopt the rules of the African Continental Free Trade Area after this year, moving the region closer to full integration into a single market. Out of the 47 ratified countries, 31 will join the Guided Trade Initiative, a significant increase from 7 in 2023, according to the AfCFTA Secretary General, Wamkele Mene. The trial phase included various products and services such as processed agricultural goods and manufactured items, leading to positive outcomes such as Uganda exporting excess milk to Algeria. The expanded pilot program will introduce a Pan-African payment and settlement system using local currencies to address currency exchange limitations. Efforts are also underway to formulate regulations on digital trade to boost online commerce, with the African Development Bank projecting the region's digital economy to reach $712 billion by 2050. The AfCFTA, with a potential market of 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion, aims to become the world's largest free trade zone by area by 2030, increasing regional trade by 80% to $532 billion by 2035. These are the stories we're tracking at this hour. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasomi Peter. The news continues shortly. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.
Now in the world of sports, England manager Sarina Wiegman has signed a contract extension with the Lionesses, which will see her stay in her role until 2027. Former Netherlands player and manager Wiegman took up her position in September 2021 and led the Lionesses to a first major trophy when they won Euro 2022. England also reached the Women's World Cup final last summer, finishing runners-up to Spain. Wiegman has also won 2 Arnold Clark Cups and the first women's finalissima against Brazil during her time in charge of England. Now, the new deal will see Wiegman in charge of the Lionesses at the next Euros in 2025, as well as the 2025-2026 Nations League and 2027 World Cup if England qualifies. Teenage star Mira Driver produced a stunning performance to demolish Ons Jabeur in the second round of the Australian Open for the loss of only 2 games. The 16-year-old was devastated to lose in the girls' of the second set. That's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. You heard that Oyo State Governor says explosive devices responsible for Bodija blast as rescue operations continue. You also heard that Comoros' re-elected president expresses pleasure over victory in poll. And finally, we told you that Mauritius assessed damage caused by Storm Bilal. Send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.